All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another episode of the Facts Over Feelings podcast. I'm back here once again with my co-host Trevor Kaufman for episode number 60, the big 60. And Trevor, we got, as expected, more football to talk about. All right. Luckily, Trevor, the NBA isn't back just yet. Thank goodness. It feels like we just had it last week, and I don't want to see another second of Jay Crowder on the court. So every day that goes by where I don't see Jay Crowder in the Suns uniform makes me happy. Anyway. We have NFL to discuss. Both of our teams won over the weekend. Trevor, the Arizona Cardinals won in, I would say, unconvincing fashion over the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I'd agree.
And then I would say, on the other hand, the Cleveland Browns won in absolutely dominant fashion. We'll go into that later. I have that game on the slate. I did not talk about my Browns in week 2. I want to talk about them this week. It was a crazy game. I also want to talk about the Bears because we need to talk about that for a second. But anyway, before we get to that, I had something else that I wanted us to do. And Trevor, I wanted to do a little game, because we're through 3 weeks of the season, Trevor, and we only have a few undefeated teams left. I think we only have, Trevor, what is that? Five undefeated teams left in the NFL. And it's really not 5 that you would expect. I think, Trevor, there's only one there that I really expected after 3 weeks.
I would say the Cardinals and the Rams.
Well, if I expected Greg Joseph to miss a 36-yard field goal, then I suppose you're right. But, I certainly didn't expect that. But, sure, the Cardinals, I think, are the second best team there. But we'll get into that in just a second. Actually, I lied. We'll get into it right now. So I wanted to start off by talking about, the first undefeated team, maybe the most surprising one, Trevor. And I wanted to ask you, are the Carolina Panthers contenders or pretenders?
Before I get to that, Ryan, podcast number 60, you said, right?
Yep.
That's how many wins my Suns are looking at this year. I don't know about your Cavs. Maybe your Cavs are in the ballpark of podcast number 14 or 15, but podcast 60, it sounds like a good number for my Suns. Anyways, Ryan.
I can't wait for that Tuesday night in Cleveland.
The Carolina Panthers are 100% pretenders. They will not contend in the NFC. They will not win the division, and they might sneak into a wild card. But when I look at the NFC West, they're probably going to get 2 wild card teams. I look at the NFC North. I think the Packers and the Vikings are going to come along as the season moves on. I think the Cowboys are the only playoff team in the NFC East right now. So it is possible that Carolina sneaks in as a wild card, but I don't consider that a contender per se. However, I do like a couple of things. One, I've really liked what I've seen from Sam Darnold. His ability to take care of the ball this year has been huge for them. He's been efficient. His completion percentage is up around 68, 69%. Matt Rule and Joe Brady have done a great job. Both college coaches, by the way. Joe Brady was the offensive coordinator when LSU had their big year, and Matt Rule was the guy who turned around multiple college football programs, most notably Baylor, who was in the mud before he got there. But to answer the question again, no, Carolina is not a contender. The 3 teams they have beaten have a combined record, I believe, of 3-6. They've beaten the Jets and the Texans and the Saints. So 3 unconvincing teams. Convincing, unconvincing, I don't know. In my opinion, I like what I see from them. I just don't think they're contenders quite yet.
Yeah, look, like that it's fair. I don't know necessarily if they're contenders, but I will say this. I think they're certainly not pretenders, Trevor. I think that they surprised me. But, looking at them now, Trevor, my biggest question mark with that team was Sam Darnold. I think you were higher on Sam Darnold than I was in New York. I think a lot of what you were saying last year was, it was a product of Adam Gase, and it wasn't so much on Sam Darnold. I think you're getting proven right. I will say, again, those 3 defenses, particularly the Texans and the Jets, very, very, very suspect, bottom of the barrel defensively. So we'll see how he performs against, higher end competition. He plays that Cowboys pass defense next week, a pass defense that, Trevor, in my opinion, is actually pretty good. I think Trevon Diggs is an absolute freak, but that's a pretty good secondary. And then they play some better teams. The Eagles, the Vikings aren't that good, but their schedule's harder, but it's still manageable. Like these games are winnable games. These next few weeks. Then they play the New York Giants. They have a lot of winnable games. I would not be surprised to see them go 5-1. My point being here, I think that they could They are not pretenders. I would lean towards contenders because I think they could sneak into a wild card spot. I really do. This defense, Trevor, is really solid. I would dare say it's actually good. It's actually good. They got Shaq Thompson. They traded for CJ Henderson, a quality corner out of Jacksonville, who was the ninth pick last year. They gave up on him for no reason. It was really weird. He's a pretty good player. He had a decent year last year. He was their top corner. They have Hassan Reddick, right? They have AJ Boye. Okay. They have some solid, they have Derek Brown. They have some solid players on the defense, some good players on the defense, Trevor. And another thing I wanted to note, just about that Panthers defense is they rank number 1 in the NFL on pressure rate. They've pressured the quarterback on almost half of the plays on defense. So they get to the quarterback like 48% of the time through 3 weeks. So like they're doing a good job on the defensive end. And I think that's going to be the strength of their team. They also have JC Horn, of course. I think he broke his foot, but it's not season ending, so he'll be back. But I really like this defense, and I think that Darnold has talent around him, Trevor. If he can keep doing what he's doing, not make mistakes, not forcing the ball down the field, I think that this team can be set up for potentially a wild card spot. Because let's face it, Trevor, outside of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, their division's it's bad. I mean, like the Saints and the Falcons aren't good teams. The Panthers weren't expected to be a good team, but here they are, 3-0.
I agree with a lot of what you just said. I do want to highlight Sam Darnold one more time. He never got competency in New York. He never got a fair chance, in my opinion. He was set up to fail, and he finally comes to a team with an offensive-minded coach, a really nice young offensive coordinator. He has a couple weapons on the outside. He has McCaffrey when McCaffrey's actually healthy, and look at what Sam Darnold's doing. He's been very solid. He doesn't turn the ball over, and they're 3-0. Now, I guess our definition of contender is going to be a little bit skewed here. My definition of contender is a team that can win at least one playoff game. If
Mine's
not,
made the playoffs.
At least one. They have to win at least one playoff game for me to be a contender. I don't think sneaking in the wild card makes you a contender.
All right.
But I definitely think Carolina can get into the playoffs. I don't know if they can win a playoff game, though. I'd have to see.
Okay.
It would depend on matchups. They're not better than Dallas. They're not better than the Rams. They're not better than Tampa. And I don't think they win a game at Green Bay in the playoffs. But that's just my opinion right now.
No, I mean, I agree with you. I think that, it's good that we established this. I think that, in my head, at least, when I was thinking about this, it was like, all right, are these teams contenders for the playoffs? Like, can these teams actually make the playoffs? So I don't know if that changes anything. I know, like you said, they could sneak into the playoffs as a wild card. So maybe it does change a little bit for you. So there you have it. But Trevor, we can move on to the next undefeated team. The next undefeated team on our board here is the Arizona Cardinals. Obviously, Trevor's team. I don't know if Trevor, you have any thoughts on this. Are the Cardinals for real? Can they make the playoffs?
The great DJ Khaled once said, all I do is win, 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 no matter what. And yes, the Cardinals are 100% contenders by Ryan's logic and by mine. I think this Cardinals team at the top end has some of the best top end talent in the NFL. This Cardinals team has 5 or 6 all-pro caliber players. 3 on the offense, 2 on the offense, and Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah. And I would say about 3 on the defense. J.J. Watt, Chandler Jones, and Budda Baker. We have 5 all-pro caliber players. And by Ryan's definition, we are a surefire contender. By my definition, I would say yes. This team is very capable of winning a playoff game. The number one issue I have with this team is we beat ourselves. We're a very highly penalized team, although that has been better this year. I think Cliff Kingsbury is weak in terms of situational management. I think he makes a lot of wrong decisions in, tough situations. But the good thing about Cliff Kingsbury, he has designed an electric offense. This is a team that can score 30 points every single game this season. I wouldn't be surprised if we went for 30 points every single game. And the defense is playing better. I know we got ran around by Minnesota, but we dominated a really good Tennessee offense. And, we harassed Trevor Lawrence and forced him into 3 turnovers. And, I would say handled Jacksonville, which isn't anything to brag about, but the defense played well. So for me, the Cardinals are absolutely contenders. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look, and certainly, as you said, by my definition, yes, these Cardinals are a contender. They will, in all likelihood, make the playoffs. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I think they will probably make the playoffs. There's a chance they don't. They're still in a very difficult
There is,
NFC West.
definitely.
They haven't played their interdivision games. Who knows? Maybe they go 0-6.
We'll see.
I don't
We'll
know.
see
I
this
mean, it's
Sunday how we
possible.
stack up.
Rams 0-2, Niners 0-2, Seahawks 0-2. Maybe you just lose all your division games. I don't know. But look, the fact of the matter is the Arizona Cardinals are legit. This offense, in all reality, this offense is a really good offense. I'd say, off the top of my head, I'd probably say it's probably 4th or 5th in the NFL, maybe even higher. This is a really electric offense. It can do it all. I don't put much stock into last week on that offense, Trevor, because DeAndre Hopkins was playing hurt. He probably shouldn't have played, if I'm being honest with you. But he played through it because D-Hop always plays, it seems. And Kyler Murray is as electric as it gets. The only question I have, Trevor, is, you might be able to answer this better than me, but my understanding is the Cardinals have an average offensive line at best. How well can that hold up? And that run game
this year.
How consistent can the run game be? Chase Edmonds, he's a good pass catching back. He's elusive, but he's a little too small for my taste. He just, I don't know. He's not reliable out of the backfield consistently. And then James Conner, it's the other end of the spectrum there. Like, he can get you a 2-yard goal line punch in, but how reliable is he, in the middle of the field to get you, 4 or 5 yards of carry? I don't know how reliable he is. So I have some question marks about the run game. That's about it. At the end of the day, they're contenders. I expect them to make the playoffs, albeit, in a tough division. I still think they get it done.
To answer your questions, Ryan, one, the offensive line has actually been very solid, in my opinion, this year.
Okay.
We brought in Rodney Hudson, who has been a fantastic just kind of facilitator, leader on that offensive line. Our pre-snap penalties are down outside of that one possession we had against Tennessee where we had 4. Outside of that, I only think there's been like 2 or 3 false starts in the 2 games since then. Our running game is very unconventional. The offense is actually just very unconventional in general, right? I actually think that the best description I've heard of this Cardinals offense is it's organized chaos. There's a ton of movement. There's a ton of misdirection. There's a ton of smoke and mirrors. And for an offensive line, that's sometimes hard to block. And it sometimes also means that the running game's not going to look as good. We're not a great power team. I'll admit that. We're not a team that, on a 3rd and 1, do we just bring in a big back and we you can get that yard the ugly way? That's not what we do. Our running game is predicated on Kyler Murray's ability to scramble and Chase Edmonds and James Conner just being able to keep defenses honest, right?
Sure.
So for me, the running game isn't a concern because we have a running quarterback, so we can, we'll get those yards. But the offensive line has actually been very solid. And what I've noticed is they do a very good job protecting Kyler Murray, but they also do a very good job, especially when teams don't blitz, of creating running lanes for Kyler Murray when they block. Because Kyler Murray loves to get on the outside. He loves to make plays with his feet. He loves to extend plays. And the offensive line does a very good job giving him lanes and windows to do that. So I got no complaints so far with the O-line. Running game, it's going to be unconventional, just a weird offense. Not going to be a lot of standard handoffs up the middle for 4 yards, but it works. It's good enough. And when you have an MVP at quarterback, you can get away with an okay running game.
Yeah, well, hey, there you go. I do have one thing I also wanted to add that I forgot to add when I first talked about the Cardinals. And that for me, Trevor, is penalties. I saw it last year. I'm sure you saw it last year. I doubt Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach. I don't doubt him as an offensive play caller. And, sometimes, Trevor, I'll see lapses, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. There will be certain drives, like you said. I think the Cardinals had 4 penpenalties on a drive.
It was our first drive
pre-snap. Yeah, it was 4 pre-snap penalties. Regardless, I worry about that. Throughout the season, can the Cardinals on offense stay disciplined enough? I think that's a byproduct of the coaching. If there's one downfall of this team at the end of the day, I told Trevor off the air, I think it's going to be Cliff Kingsbury. Inevitably, look, it might be better for the Cardinals if they don't make the playoffs just because it gets Cliff out of there. But I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit pessimistic, but we'll see what happens. I think that, again, they have an electric offense. And as Trevor said, if their O-line's been decent so far this year and, it's provided Kyler with some decent, vision and time. So, maybe they'll be pretty good this year. So that would be an improvement. But Trevor, I wanted to move on from the Arizona Cardinals onto our next undefeated team, which I think this is a pretty straightforward one. This is a pretty easy one. I think this is the most obvious one. The Los Angeles Rams Trevor, I'm just going to say it. They're a contender. They're not even just a playoff contender. They're a Super Bowl contender. And they might just not be a Super Bowl contender. They might be the Super Bowl favorite in some people's eyes after last week. A dominating performance, Trevor, over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Their defense is just it's suffocating. It's a quality defense, really good defense all around, and they're a very well disciplined team. Trevor, I do want to add the Los Angeles Rams have the least number of penalties through 3 games of the season. I believe they only have 8 total penalties through 3 games of the season, which is absolutely fantastic. That's
fantastic.
Really, really hard to do. So kudos to them for that. I think this team is one of the best teams in football. I think Tampa's still better than them. I think when it comes down to it, I don't really want to bet against that Tampa offense and defense combo with Tom Brady at the helm in the playoffs. But the Rams did get the better of them in the regular season at their home stadium. We'll see what happens. I don't even have much to say about the offense. It's elite. And then, their defense with Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey angry on both sides. It's like you don't even miss Troy Hill and John Johnson, 2 guys that left in the offseason. It's like they don't even miss them. They haven't even missed a beat. No, I know. I'm serious. They just haven't missed a beat. These are 2 quality players who,
You had to mention the guys that went to Cleveland, huh?
Well, it's the only 2, notable.
Okay, fair enough.
Distractions from this defense in the last year. But yeah, they did both go to Cleveland. What can I say? But regardless, this team's elite. I don't have much to say about it. All around, great coaching, great talent on both sides of the ball, great discipline.
The Rams are a contender, simple as that.
Yep.
It was clear to me watching that game on Sunday that Sean McVay is so happy that Matthew Stafford is his quarterback.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to rely on play action and trickery and a perfect game plan to win a football game. He can just have Matthew Stafford drop back and absolutely gunsling it. And the Rams aren't a dink and dunk team anymore with Jared Goff. They are throwing the ball downfield. Nope. They have Deshaun Jackson. They did a very good job utilizing him more yesterday as opposed to the first 2 games. Cooper Kupp has been a monster. They don't even need a running game. And I actually thought Sony Michel played fairly well for them yesterday, but their running game isn't even anything special. I just think the fact that Matthew Stafford is finally in a competent system with a great offensive coach like Sean McVay, it shows. We already knew Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald were both elite. That Rams defense is elite. So simple as the Rams are contenders. Mm-hmm. They are my favorites to win the NFC right now.
Yeah, and that's I would bet, Trevor, that most people agree with you. I bet that most people think that the Rams are the favorites, especially after that game on Sunday. But we don't know. We don't really need to say anything else about
Tampa
them.
Bay's very beat up right now.
Yeah, no, that's true. I mean, look, you're right. They're beat up. The most obvious one's Antonio Brown on the offensive side, and then you have, I'm sure. I think Carlton Davis is hurt as well.
Jamel Dean's hurt. Winfield's hurt. Their secondary is depleted right now. Tampa's.
Yeah, and that's probably their thinnest position on their defense, at least, their secondary. But yeah, moving on from the Rams, Trevor. Here's an interesting one, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. They're 3-0. They're coming off an OT win over Miami. They beat Baltimore in a thriller week 1, and then they took care of business against Pittsburgh in week 2. Trevor, are they a contender or not?
I'm going to say yes, but there are warning flags for me, Ryan.
Okay.
They've been down, I believe, in double digits in every single one of their games, or 2 of their 3 games. I know for a fact they were down by double digits against the Ravens and the Dolphins. I don't know if they were down by double digits against the Steelers. And in the NFL, if you consistently get down by double digits, you are not going to continue to win games. Another another worry I have with them is they're in a very good division. They played the Chargers on Monday night. I think they're worse than the Chargers. I would pick the Chargers to win that game. But again, they're in a great division. Kansas City's in that division. The Broncos are looking good. The Chargers are looking really good. Number 3, I'm not sold on this team's personnel. And they've done some things really well this year. Their pass rush is a lot better this year. Max Crosby has been really good. Carl Nassib has made a couple big plays. Number 2, Derek Carr has been able to spread the ball around very nicely. They're not Darren Waller dependent. Zay Jones has made some plays. Hunter Renfrow can get in on the action. Derek Carr targeted 9 guys yesterday in that game against the Miami Dolphins. So he's clearly able to spread the ball around. The O-line's giving him time to throw. The defense has a pass rush. And number 3, Derek Carr has been elite. Derek Carr is, I believe, averaging 400 pass yards a game through the first 3 games of the season. That is elite.
Yep.
And I don't know.
You seem torn.
They are definitely a contender for the playoffs. I'm just
Mm,
there are things that I don't like about this team. I ultimately don't know if they're going to sustain this over a 17 game season. They
mm.
didn't last year. They were 6-3 last year. I believe they ended up going either 8-8 or 7-9. I don't know if they'll be able to keep up, a 10, 11, 12 win pace, but we'll see.
Yeah, it definitely will be interesting. Although I will say, Trevor, our decision or your decision will be made easier if you know that Derek Carr will keep up what he's been doing so far this year. And
Right.
Trevor, I think he definitely can. I think that he had a few down years, right? You remember these last few years, especially prior to last year. He had at least 2 or 3 years where people were questioning if he should even be the starter there, if he even deserves to
Right.
be playing. And people forget his rookie season, Trevor. He was sensational. He was almost elite. He was kind of like Justin Herbert his rookie season. He was slinging it to Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree. I mean, they were two fantastic receivers his rookie season, and they showed out. And he was fantastic then. And it looks like he's rounding into form, finally getting back what he did that rookie year. And what's important to me, Trevor, is just looking at his progression because last year, Trevor, he was just, it was a dink and dunk offense. They were just throwing a lot to Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow around the line of scrimmage, and a lot of yards after the catch, right? Derek Carr was a game manager. He was making smart plays, easier throws that weren't too far down the field. And I think, Trevor, this year, they've turned it up a notch. I think that he's throwing down the field more to everybody, to Darren Waller, to Henry Ruggs, to Brian Edwards, even. You got guys like you got guys getting in on the action who weren't last year. So I think that he's done a really good job. I think that that offense is pretty good. The question I have is that O-line. They lost a lot of offensive linemen in the offseason. Can it hold up over a full season? It's not very deep. They kind of had to patch it together last second. So that's a worry I have. And then, their defense, as you said, Trevor, has been pretty good. You highlighted that defensive line, that pass rush. But Trevor, who I didn't know they got? I forgot that they got Casey Hayward from the Chargers.
They did get him.
A really good, a quality corner, Trevor. And they have, I think, is it Jonathan Abrams, right? He's a hard hitting
safety.
Hard hitting safety.
They did
known
get KJ Wright as well from Seattle.
known for his
They've got
massive
some
hits.
players.
Yeah, they've got some guys. And Casey Hayward's been a top 3 corner this year, I believe. If you go off Pro Football Focus grading, if you trust that at all. JC Horn and Casey Hayward are 2 of the top 3 so far this season. So kudos to them. But he's been sensational. And, to sum it up, I do think they're a contender. It's a valid question, Trevor, that you brought up, like whether or not they can sustain this over a full year because they weren't able to last year. I think we saw some of this last year, starting out hot, starting out like, oh, they might be legit, and then falling off at the end. I think they'll sustain it better this year. I think that they definitely have a shot to make it into the wild card. I would not be surprised if 3 teams from the AFC West made the playoffs.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah, well,
sorry about that, Ryan. My
No,
fault. Anyways,
we'll move on to the last
like
team.
to move on to the last team, the Broncos.
Yeah, so talking about the Denver Broncos, Trevor, this might be the toughest one because I would lean towards them being pretenders. I think that this offense is pretty bad. I think this offense is kind of over playing above what we expected it to, overperforming. They played the Jets, the Giants, and the Jaguars the first 3 weeks, Trevor. So if I was the Broncos, I'd almost expect to go 3-0 as well. I mean, like, come on, these are the horrible teams. Perhaps they may be the 3 worst teams in football, honestly. The Jaguars, the Giants, and the Jets. And they played all of them the first 3 weeks. So I worry about this offense when they play an actual team with a competent defense. I think that Bridgewater is going to be tested. I don't think that he's that good. Contrary to what he's been doing the first 3 weeks. But I do think the defense is legit. So this is why I think that they might have a slight chance to stay in games and be legit. Their defense has been really, really good. Their secondary might be the best in football, Trevor. I mean, you got what is it? I think it's Jeffrey Simmons. They signed him as safety. He was franchise tagged 2 years in a row. He's been electric for them the last few years. They got Kendall Fuller. And they got oh my gosh, the guy from is it no?
Surtain.
They did, but they also got I think it's Ronald Darby from Washington. He
Oh,
was a really
right.
good corner.
Okay.
He was a really
Gotcha.
good corner as well. I was trying to think of him. He was a really good corner, and he's playing well for them this year. And obviously they have Von Miller back healthy, which is a big thing. So this defense could keep them in games, but if I had to say, I'd probably say they're a pretender because I just do not trust that offense at all.
I'm back and forth on the Broncos because that defense is really good. I mean, and they're missing Bradley Chubb. I think it could be even better.
Mm,
Honestly, that secondary you mentioned, Ryan, is insanely good.
mm,
Kyle Fuller, Justin Simmons, Pat Surtain. You also mentioned Ronald Darby. He's actually on the IR, so they can still get better in the secondary. My two worries with Denver right now are, does this offense have a ceiling, right? Like, does this offense have any big play over the top type of capability?
yeah.
I don't know. What I do like about this offense under Teddy Bridgewater is they don't make mistakes. They don't turn the ball over and
Mm,
they don't beat themselves. They're a limited offense, but they're a well coached and they're an organized offense. I think they have a decent 1-2 punch with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. And they have some weapons on the outside. They have Cortland Sutton, but Hamler and Jerry Jeudy are on the IR. So it makes me believe, that this team can get better when they actually get fully healthy.
mm.
So I'm actually going to disagree with you. I'm going to say that Denver is a contender. I know they've beaten 3 bad teams. I get
Wow.
that. But I think this team is very well coached. They have a terrific defense
They do.
led by an elite pass rusher and an elite secondary.
Mm.
And they have a quarterback that is a good enough NFL quarterback that with the right team around him can get you to the playoffs. So I'm going to say that Denver's that team. I'm not saying
Wow.
that they'll win the Super Bowl, but I do think this team is, by Ryan's definition, a contender to
Yeah.
make the playoffs.
Trevor, would you take Denver over Las Vegas?
Hmm.
Tough, right?
Not at the moment because Las Vegas has beaten a real team. Denver hasn't.
Mm,
Not at the moment.
mm. Interesting. Because I know, I think it's obvious that Denver has the better defense, but I think it's also obvious that Vegas has the better offense. So it just kind of comes down to which one is better. All right. All right. So now we're going to move on to, the next topic, which is obviously Trevor and I talking about a couple of games from this past week. And Trevor, I only have one game on the slate. We have 2 of yours this week. So Trevor, we're going to start off with one of your games. What is one of the games you wanted to talk about from week 3?
I'm going to talk about the Chargers and the Chiefs, Ryan, and I'm going to talk about my guy Justin Herbert. And I'm a little biased. I have a soft spot for him. I do have him in fantasy, but Justin Herbert's elite. I'm just
Yeah.
going to go right out there and say it. Justin Herbert is going to be elite in this league for a long time, and he isn't Patrick Mahomes, but he is going to push He's going to push Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
for a very long time. He is going to take a lot of games off of him.
Mm.
And Anthony Lynn wasn't a great head coach. Last year, there was a lot of dysfunction around this team. And you look at the team this year, you give them a little bit of an offensive line. I know they drafted the guy from, I believe, Northwestern, Slater.
Rashawn Slater. Yeah.
He's been really good. They
Sensational.
have weapons. They have Eckler. But Herbert just makes it look so easy. He's 6'5", he's big, he's got a great arm, but he makes all the throws. He never seems to be rattled. He always, even in that game on Sunday, he was poised to the very end, 4th and 9. Yeah, they got bailed out a little bit by a penalty, but that was a ball right on the money, dropped by the receiver, did get bailed out. Then he throws the touchdown to Mike Williams a couple plays later. That just shows me that this kid there's no moment too big for this guy.
Mm.
And I've been really impressed with him. Ryan and I were not high on him at all coming out of Oregon. Him and I just didn't see a ton in college that made us think he'd be great.
Yeah.
But this guy has proven a lot of people wrong, and he is a fantastic quarterback, and he will be for a long time. Quickly on the Chiefs, I am not too concerned about this team. I'm not concerned about the Patrick Mahomes turnovers. I just think that's part of his DNA. He just makes some of those crazy plays, and more often than not do they work. But sometimes, he misses it a little bit and ends up getting picked off. I think he'll clean that up very easily. However, I'm very concerned about this defense. They can't stop anybody. They've given up. They gave up 30 to the Browns. They gave up 36 to the Ravens. They gave up 30 again yesterday. They don't really have a pass rush. They moved Chris Jones to the outside. I think he's more of a natural interior defensive lineman. Their secondary has been eaten up. Their corners are not great. And I like Tyrann Mathieu, but he might be the only bright spot in that secondary. So for me, the Chiefs defense is a huge concern. Patrick Mahomes is not. But the highlight of this game is Justin Herbert being amazing. So all you, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, look, Trevor, I mean, I don't think that this game is really a product of the Chiefs playing poorly or the Chiefs regressing.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just the Chargers getting better. And I think that's exactly what we saw. They have a new coaching staff. They have, obviously Justin Herbert in his second season, healthy Austin Eckler, and, a rejuvenated Mike Williams. I mean, this guy, Trevor, I did not see this coming. I mean, wow. So here's the thing. Mike Williams prior to this year, Trevor, in reality was just a vertical threat. He was a big body who you can put on the sideline and go up and make contested catches. That's what he was for the most part. One of the most inconsistent players in football, made some big plays, but also just had some goose eggs, just didn't show up some weeks.
Yeah.
And through 3 weeks, this guy is the number one receiver over Keenan Allen so far. I mean, wow, this guy, he's been absolutely sensational. I think he had 2 more touchdowns on Sunday. And I think he's had at least 3 or 4 in the season so far.
He's had one in every game.
Yeah, I mean, he's been absolutely sensational. So he has been a major bright spot for them, not only because of his stats, but because he's doing more than just vertical routes. I've seen him catch multiple passes around the line of scrimmage and run after the catch, which is something that, I think is new. I don't really think that Mike Williams was catching a ton of screen passes behind the line last season or, in any of his previous seasons. So this is something that I think is a big development. I think he's going to be a really quality player. And I think it's also a testament to Justin Herbert because I think this guy's a better quarterback than, than he was last year. I think that, Trevor, the biggest concern for us, at least for me, was his turnovers, the inconsistency at Oregon. I didn't doubt the talent. I just doubted the consistency. And let me tell you, Trevor, he's put those doubts to rest for me. I mean, this guy is as consistent as they come. I mean, against Dallas last week, he had so many good throws that the only reason they were all called back was due to penalties by his offensive line. Yeah. So honestly, this guy's just, he's been having a great season. And this is the reason the Chargers were able to win. I'm not worried about Kansas City. That defense is poor. They just don't have much there. They have 2 really good players. Other than that, they have a bunch of average guys. But Mahomes will overcome that. That offense, there aren't any holes in that offense other than Clyde, fumbling the ball. So, other than that, I don't see a single downside of that offense. So I'm not too worried about them. But it's more of a product of the Chargers having a great game and a great season so far.
And I think this game is a product of the salary cap. When you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you drop all the big money on one side of the ball, Mahomes, Kelce, Tyreek Hill, then they bring in a couple of linemen, a guy like Orlando Brown. He's kind of expensive. That defense is, defense is short on cash. There's not a lot of, elite big contract guys on that defense. Ryan mentioned there's 2. I mean, yeah, it's probably Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu. I don't think there's any other, Pro Bowl caliber defensive players on that team. And it just shows you that the salary cap is the great equalizer in professional sports. When you don't have an unlimited budget to buy your way a championship,
like baseball.
Exactly, like baseball. Every team has a hole. There are no perfect NFL teams because the salary cap prevents that from happening. The NBA is a little different because guys will just force their way out, and then teams will, the guys will take pay cuts, guys will pay the luxury tax. But the NFL, the salary cap is kind of the great equalizer. Every team has a hole. Every team, there's no perfect team, and the Chiefs are just another example of that. That defense has a lot of problems. So,
yep.
Moving on to Ryan's game. Ryan, I know you're very eager to talk about your Browns.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've talked about them at all, but you can go ahead and say what you got to say.
Yeah, I mean, look, as much as I want to talk about the Browns, I think more of my time should be spent on talking about the Bears because Trevor, here's the reality. I thought the Bears were better than either they just played a horrific game on Sunday or we just dominated, the Browns just dominated, or the Bears aren't what I thought they would be because, I mean, look, this defense is a quality defense. And I'll tell you right now, Matt Nagy is he's wasting one of the best defenses in football. This is a top 5 quality defense if you give them a semi-competent offense. And Trevor, what I saw from their offense was one of the worst performances I think I've ever seen in my entire life. Justin Fields, Trevor, was sacked 9 times. A mobile quarterback was sacked 9 times in a single game. Okay, he was pressured. He was pressured on 60% of his dropbacks. Trevor, 60% he was pressured. That's an insanely high rate. He was 6 for 20 throwing the ball. 6 for 20.
Wow.
I mean, like they had like 45 rushing yards. It was just an absolute travesty of a performance. And it's the offensive line. It's all the offensive line. Sure, Cleveland was playing tight coverage on the receivers. Sure, Justin Fields made some misfires, had some bad throws, overthrew some guys, wasn't making always the right play, staring down his reads. Sure, that's all that. When you're getting pressured, when you're getting sacked 9 times, when you're getting hit 12 to 14 times a game, when you're getting pressured on 3/5 of your plays, there's not much you can do. And I think that that's a product of the GM not addressing that O-line. Might be the most important spot in football outside of quarterback, Trevor, in my humble opinion. Offensive line is extremely important, at least to have at least half that line be competent. And most of the blame falls on Matt Nagy. A lot of the national media has been saying this. They're totally right. Here's the thing. Matt Nagy should not be the coach of the Chicago Bears. This is disgusting. He has all this time, to prepare a game plan. And I listened to Dan Orlovsky talk about this the other day. You have 150 days to think of a game plan for your rookie quarterback, the guy you drafted out of Ohio State. And this is what you come up with? You bring 5-man protection, Trevor, the majority of the time against the Browns D-line with your O-line. You don't add any tight ends, a fullback, nothing to help Justin Fields out. Add some protection, give him some more time. Double team Myles Garrett. No. Just let Myles Garrett go one-on-one with your left tackle. That's a good idea. So it was just a really horrible game plan by Matt Nagy. Hung his quarterback out to dry, really. So I don't really put a lot of this on Fields. Sure, he had some misfires, some bad plays, but I think most of it's on the head coach. So that was really bad. And I don't have much to say about the Browns other than Kareem Hunt was an absolute monster. The O-line's playing well. Baker settled down as the game went on. Odell looked nice out there in his first game back. And wow, the defensive line. Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett are absolute animals. And I want to shout out Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the rookie linebacker out of Notre Dame. I think he was defensive rookie of the week by Pro Football Focus. He was really good. He is just electric out there. He shadows Myles Garrett. He stands right over top of him, Trevor, and just kind of like when Myles rushes, he kind of just shadows right in that area. So, and he made play after play, tackles for loss, sacks, pass breakups, you name it. So he played a sensational game. So I wanted to give him a quick shout out.
You covered this game well. You're totally right about the Bears. What's funny story about the Bears. Yeah. Matt Nagy's first year, I think, was when they went 12-4. They won the division with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. And then Cody Parkey has the double doink in the wild card game, and they haven't been the same since. And the Bears made the playoffs last year, albeit they were 8-8. So Matt Nagy's made the playoffs twice. Yet I completely agree with you. This guy's incompetent. Yep. No game plan, no adjustments, nothing to help your rookie quarterback out. Did nothing register for Matt Nagy at the end of that first quarter? You couldn't tell that your quarterback just had no time to throw. He was getting hit every other play. There's no extra lineman to try and hedge Myles Garrett. There's no running back to help out the left tackle. There's no adjustment in protections or anything. I didn't understand this. There's rumors there's a conspiracy theory that Matt Nagy's trying to throw this game on purpose or for whatever reason. The Bears want the number 1 pick.
Oh my goodness.
Because the argument is, how can you be that bad? How can that game plan have been that bad? What competent person could have had that bad of a game plan? Who knows? I don't believe that conspiracy theory, but I do find it kind of funny. With all that being said, though, Ryan, and Ryan's not going to like hearing this.
Oh boy. This
was a 7-point game at the start of the fourth quarter. The Browns were not very convincing in this game yesterday.
Oh, my, don't even tell me.
Their D-line was fantastic. But this is the same Bears team that couldn't stop anybody Sunday night against the Los Angeles Rams. And, yeah, they played well against the Cincinnati Bengals, but we know the Cincinnati Bengals they're better than I thought. They did beat Pittsburgh yesterday. So, for me, Cleveland's offensive line got pushed around. Baker Mayfield was not great. Kareem Hunt was the difference maker. Kareem Hunt made a unbelievable individual play on that 30-yard touchdown where he broke like 4 tackles to get into the end zone. I know Ryan remembers what I'm talking about.
Oh, yes, I do.
But other than that, the Browns are very unimpressive. It is kind of one of those like games where it's like you don't have to be at your best to win just because that other team is so limited. And Ryan's right. The Browns defense just took over this game. Their D-line was getting to Fields whenever they want. And when you have no ability to protect your quarterback, it's impossible to run an offense. Because all you do is you can you can do anything you want. You can blitz, you can rush 4, you can press, you can do whatever. There's nothing stopping that defense from doing what they want.
And that's what the Browns started doing.
So for me, this game was more about how bad the Bears were, but the Browns weren't great, but they didn't need to be great. They were taking on offense.
I mean, like, sure, I'll say that we got off to a slow start in the first quarter specifically, but generally the first half. But I will note that the Cleveland Browns on a really good defense, and I know the time of possession was lopsided. Browns had 40 minutes of possession, Bears had 20, and the Browns had 26 first downs versus 6 for the Bears. But I do want to note that the Browns had 420 total yards against this Bears defense. So no matter which way you slice it, I think at the end of the day, the Browns pulled it together. And I will agree with you, though, Trevor, specifically in the first half. The Browns offense was sloppy. Baker didn't look good. The run game wasn't doing well. The O-line looked sloppy. So they cleaned that up a little bit in the second half. But that was more of a product of the Bears defense getting tired, I think, more than anything. So I honestly do kind of agree with you. The Browns did kind of struggle on the offensive end in the first half specifically. And they could have done better. This game could have been 35-6, and I wouldn't have been surprised. But Trevor, we can move on from this game. We talked, we had a good conversation about this. To our final game of the night, just one final game we wanted to discuss, and it was another one of Trevor's games. So, Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually pick good games. Ryan, on the other hand, picks these. Ryan wants to talk about Towson versus North Dakota State. Those are the types of games Ryan's going to pick. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to pick a game with 2 Super Bowl contenders. I want to talk about Fox's game of the week, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. And I thought this was a fantastic game. I know Tampa Bay got worked, but I love the atmosphere. I actually really liked seeing Sean McVay run around like a little kid. He seemed so happy to have Matthew Stafford as his quarterback. And Matthew Stafford actually got off to a slow start. He threw a ball that really should have been picked by Jamel Dean. He missed a couple throws early in the game, missed Cooper Kupp, I believe, it was either a corner or a post route early in the game. So Stafford, it was a little shaky, but then when Matthew Stafford catches fire, it was all over. He was slinging it all over the field. He was throwing it deep. He was throwing it to Cooper Kupp. The Rams could do whatever they want. So this game was, for me, less about what Tampa Bay couldn't do, but more about what the Rams could do. I think Sean McVay finally has his guy. The Rams went all in on this. A funny story about this, my favorite guy ever, Colin Cowherd, was at a – no, Ryan, you'll like this. He was actually at a barbecue with the Rams owner. And Sean McVay in the offseason, I believe, ran into Matthew Stafford in Mexico and then called the Rams owner and was begging him to let him go after Matthew Stafford and try and get him. And, we saw what the Rams gave up. The Rams gave up, I believe, 2 first-round picks to get this guy. So clearly it was all worth it. Sean McVay knew that Jared Goff was not good enough to win a Super Bowl, especially when you're now losing guys on your defense like Troy Hill and John Johnson. They got Matthew Stafford. They, dominated a really good Tampa Bay team. Final thing I'll say about this, there's no need to panic in Tampa Bay. They are beat up. The injury gods are against them at the moment. No Jason Pierre-Paul, no Antonio Brown. Jamel Dean gets hurt. Carl Davis is banged up. They were down to a corner named D. Delaney, I think is his name. He was an undrafted free agent out of the Citadel. And that was the guy guarding, I believe it was Cooper Kupp, or it was either Cooper Kupp or Robert Woods, one or the other. So this team is depleted in the secondary. Give them time to get healthy, and we'll see what Tampa Bay is made of. And this is also typical Tom Brady. It feels like every year Tom Brady loses a game in September, and everybody wants to finally say that Father Time has won. Tom Brady is finished. We'll see how this team is in November and December, right? There's no reason to panic. But the Rams are really good, and Matthew Stafford, with some competency, is also a really good quarterback.
Trevor, this game, I'll tell you this right now, means absolutely nothing. Okay.
Okay, I didn't know it meant. Wow, I thought it meant something.
And look, let me look. Okay, I'm over exaggerating a little bit, but my point still stands. Okay, Tom Brady, and this is what happens every year, and I could go pull the exact numbers on this, but Tom Brady gets better as the year goes on. Okay, it's always how Tom Brady goes. He starts out, September, it's Tom Brady. He typically doesn't start out poorly, but you hit November and December, Trevor, and Tom Brady, he always hits another gear. He's always just steps it up to another level. And I think that's what's going to happen this year, as it does every year. And the Bucs are just so depleted in the secondary. You noted it. I don't think there's much else we have to say about it. When you're down to a guy, an undrafted free agent out of the Citadel, guarding the number one receiver on the Rams, I mean, you have a problem. I mean,
You do.
that's worse than the Jaguars defense right now. That's saying a lot. So, I mean, that's really, really bad. It's not their fault. It's nothing they could do about it. But I think that's really the major reason they lost this game the way they did. I'm not taking anything away from the Rams. I think they're fantastic. I think they're the second best team in the NFC, maybe even the second best team in football. But I think that that's the major reason that they won by double digits. I think it would have been closer. And I also want to say that, I mean, I'll tell you this. If you're the Buccaneers, you got to figure something out in the running game, Trevor, because Tom Brady being your leading rusher, that's a problem. So there's something wrong there. And I get it. A lot of people nowadays are like, hey, you don't need to have a balanced run pass game to be elite as an offense. But regardless as to what you think about that, I mean, you can't have Tom Brady being your leading rusher on 3 carries. So you need Ronald Jones. Bruce Arians needs to let him out of the doghouse a little bit. Like, I get he missed the pass protection in week 2. I get he fumbled in week 1. But my goodness, the guy's your best quality runner, and you're not letting him run. Leonard Fournette's a quality runner. You ran into him 4 times. So I get the game script wasn't in their favor, but you got to do better than letting Tom Brady lead you in rushing with under 15 yards. So that's a problem. And then also, that secondary needs to heal up. That's all it is. And I also want to, Antonio Brown was out, but, I don't think that that's like a major, major factor. But at the end of the day, their secondary's got to heal up. And the one thing I'll say about the Rams is that Matthew Stafford allows Sean McVay to use every play he thinks of, right? So Trevor made a great point. McVay had to limit the playbook. It's like Kyle Shanahan with Jimmy Garoppolo. They got to limit the playbook to tailor to their quarterbacks. As good as I think Baker Mayfield is, Kevin Stefanski probably only uses 85 to 90% of the plays he thinks of, because there's that 10 to 15% where it's like, okay, maybe I don't want to utilize that play with Baker as my quarterback. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He can't run out of the pocket the way he does. And the same thing goes with Matthew Stafford here is with Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford can make all the throws. Okay, Jared Goff can't. We know that. There's a reason he's throwing to his running backs 15 times a game through 3 games. He just can't make all the throws. Matthew Stafford can. So I think that's a major thing. I think McVay can now utilize every play he wants, every play he thinks of, and I think that Trevor made a great point there. So I wanted to just highlight that on this game.
100%. The Rams have a test this Sunday, though. They play my Cardinals. Ryan, can I get a score prediction for that game? Cardinals-Rams this Sunday.
Trevor, who's home in this game?
The Rams are home. They are currently -6, 6-point favorites.
Trevor, the final score of this game, okay, it's going to be 38-27. Rams. It won't play quite that close in the fourth quarter, though. It'll be close in the first half. Rams will pull away in the third quarter. Cardinals will score late TD to pull within 11. Just my opinion. I think that Rams defense is a little too good. I think that Rams offense is a lot better than that Cardinals defense. Just the way it is.
35-27 Rams. I agree with you.
You almost, yeah, okay. Very.
Well, you know what?
scores.
That's the exact same score.
No, I said 38-27.
You said 38.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll go 34-26. There you go. 1 point different each way.
Why you're getting to 26 points.
My Cardinals will lose this game, but give us time. Actually, just give it like 3 weeks and then the Suns start up again. But we'll save that for another day, Ryan.
Gosh, unbelievable, folks. I am so sorry that you have to listen to this. This is an absolute travesty. But regardless, we can wrap this up here. No, please, no more NBA talk for the next couple of weeks. My gosh, a lot of Suns talk in the last few months. Yeah. Just keep Jay Crowder off of my podcast, off my television screen, and I'll be happy. But That about sums up this podcast. I hope everyone enjoyed. And unless, Trevor, you have any final shout outs, I made my shout outs during the podcast to my boy Jeremiah Owosu Koromoa, but I don't know if you have anything you want to shout out anyone in specific.
I do have one shout out, Ryan. I have a shout out to the University of Arizona football team. We have the longest active losing streak in college football. It is now so bad that the team is offering open walk-on tryouts October 12th at 6 p.m. I might just go walk on for this Arizona football team, Ryan. We'll stay tuned.
Just to then you'll get popped by a corner from NAU. Unbelievable. Wow, what a travesty. And on the other hand, I'll shout out my SMU Mustangs, another win this week over TCU in TCU, so a big win. I'll tell you this, Trevor, you're going to hear a few of these names, Reggie Robertson and Rasheed Rice. They're going to be NFL players in the upcoming seasons. These guys are
legit. They go to
Auburn? No, receivers at SMU, a funny guy over here. They're going to be legit NFL receivers. They're going to get drafted at some point in the next year or two. So keep an eye out for them. But congrats to my Mustangs. 4-0 in the year, getting top 25 votes. Yeah, Trevor, go ahead.
This isn't a shout out, but this is a get well to Devin Booker. He is currently in COVID health and safety protocols. We missed him at training camp today. Hope to see him back soon. Yeah, one of the best scorers of our generation. Shout out Jay Crowder. Shout out Jay Crowder, salsa dancing at Media Day. I know Ryan loved to see that. So
I didn't look.
I'm gonna have to throw in some basketball here every week just to keep Ryan a little angry.
I'll tell you this last thing. Go look up Evan Mobley hype video, 30 seconds straight of just raining threes from the top of the key. Wow, this guy. He's basically Kevin Durant 2.0. So, you heard it here first. Don't forget it. All-star within the first 3 seasons of his career. Okay, don't forget that either. But regardless, Trevor, I think we made a bet on that. But regardless, we can wrap it up here. Good quality podcast. I hope everyone enjoyed, and we will be back next week with more NFL, and we will be back again with some college football. So we'll see you then.